when I was younger, I didn't really, you didn't take value and stuff like that. You know what I mean? You just didn't, because your mind's on other things, going through adolescence, going through puberty, getting that sexual drive. But now, as you're older, you're like, man, I can really, just listen to some of that. Actually, I listen to classical music. And that surprises people, but I don't I listen to Beethoven and all that good stuff. But you ever heard of two cellos?
Absolutely. Oh,
yeah. Amazing.
Have you ever seen them in concert?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, they were here in San Diego, and one of the guys hurt his ankle or something, or his foot. And but it was amazing. The talent. Yeah, that's talent. Fucking curling ain't talent. Those guys are talent.
I have loved music. So I was in the Texas Boys Choir when I was a kid. Right, I had this angelic singing voice until I hit puberty, and then this is what you get. I mean, my voice. If I sing now, I sound like dying whale farts. Oh, I mean, you do not want to hear me sing. I don't do karaoke. I'll be in the shower and I get the radio blasted. I'll sing along, but my kids, they'll go. We'll be listening to music and I'll sing along in the car, and my daughter will reach over and she'll go, "Hey, who sings this?" And I'll name the band, and she'll go, "Yeah, you're not him." Yeah. So
man, kids are great at reality checks, man. They really are. Yeah. You're over here thinking like you're hitting the notes, man, and you're just pounding it, and you're just nailing this song, and they just put the hand in and be like, "You need to stop. I'm crying because it hurts."
My kids will. I mean, they'll turn off the radio. They'll go, "We'd rather get silence." Even if the radio is blasting, just a little bit of my voice coming into it. They're like, "Yeah, we'd rather suffer in silence than suffer with you singing, Dad." So
that's funny. That's funny, man. So you went to college. You got a college degree in beer pong and women chasing. Yeah. And so when did you get on the Marines? Like right after college, or
no? So that was back in President Ronald Reagan's days, and all of our ROTC contracts, they were doing the defense drawdowns. The Berlin Wall was collapsing. We didn't need the military anymore. So I'm sitting there.
Well, not really. I was born in 82.
Yes. So this is that same time person. Yeah. Anyways, back then, so they let us all out of our ROTC obligations, So I come back to San Diego and I'm like this lost puppy, So I thought, well, shit. So I put myself through the police academy as an open enrollee at Southwestern College. And when I had gone through Army ROTC, I went you can do your summer ROTC training. So I went and did Ranger School. And so I did all this really tactical. I was going to be a special forces guy. I was going to be that guy, But now they're letting, I didn't even have a chance to go in. And so I came back here and, I was and I'd always had a job my entire life. When I was in college, I washed dishes at the Ramada Inn, or else I was a desk clerk for Budget Rent-A-Car, or I was a deadhead driver for Budget, or I worked out at the Green Tree Hotel doing check-ins for truckers that were going across. But I always had a job. So here I was just out of college, right? And I had no job. So I come home, I get to my parents' house, and they're like, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know. What do you do with a biology degree?" I was like, the only reason I studied biology was because it was interesting to me, and it would get me my degree, so I could go in this. I would have a degree, go in and be an officer in the service. And I'm sitting there, and I was totally freaking lost. I was like, so I got a job doing security at a shopping mall, and I was like, well, and a buddy of mine said, "Hey, come put yourself through the police academy. Maybe you can be a cop." And I was like, I could see that, So I enrolled out at Southwestern College, put myself through the academy, and a buddy of mine, a sergeant with Southwestern College, with Chula Vista PD, he's like, "Hey, come on over. Let me introduce you to Lieutenant Dan Parch." And he was into martial arts, so we had a connection. And he was a big Taekwondo guy, and so we talked, did some matches, and he said, "Well, you have to do 2 semesters. You have to complete the whole academy, before you get hired." And I was like, I don't know if I wanted, I was just kind of wishy-washy. I wasn't used to being a wash. So I'm working as a security guard. And so they let me be a reserve police officer, and I was teaching marksmanship. I'm a pretty good shot. And so I'm down there teaching the cadets that are going through the academy and stuff. I'm down there with Alan Cotton teaching people how to shoot. And I kind of had a good time with that and stuff. But I just didn't, and so I went up to visit my dad, and he had a house just outside of the back gate at Camp Pendleton. And we go to this bar, the same bar that he had met my mother in, the Red Vest, right? It's infamous up there. So we go to this bar, and I'm sitting there, and my dad's holding court. My dad's like the old school infantry Marine. Like when my dad's holding court, everybody's there. And I'm like, yeah, well, I went through Ranger training as an ROTC. I'm talking my big shit game, right? And I could kill 52 people with my left thumb, and I'm running my mouth like a smart aleck. And my dad goes, bullshit. He goes, I bet you couldn't even graduate Marine Corps boot camp. And I was like, bullshit. I go, I could walk through boot camp. And he goes, bullshit. And I go, yeah. And my dad laid a dollar bill out on the bar, and he goes, I bet you $1 you can't. So I whooped out my dollar bill. I go, oh yeah, I bet you I could, right? So we continued drinking, and they're hazing me, and and I said, well, I was going to be a Marine, but they canceled the program, and and I'm full of shit. I was nothing. I was dirt.
Yeah, you're talking a lot of hot air.
And I'm, but now understand, I'm a pretty, I was a state champ wrestler, and I'm pretty accomplished martial artist. I've been in some pretty big tournaments and stuff. And so we go back, we're done drinking. We go back to my house, to my dad's house, and I'm, crashed down on the couch drooling. Next morning, he comes in, flips the couch over with me in it, blam, dumps me on the floor, and he goes, let's go, you're signing up. And I go, what are you talking about? He goes, are you going to welch on your ballot? He goes, I bet you $1 you couldn't graduate boot camp. And I was sitting there, and I was at that point in my life where I wasn't doing anything. And I'm like, you know what, fuck you. I go, let's go. So we drive down to the recruiter's office, and I go, what's the toughest job in the Marine Corps? And he goes, well, Force Recon is the most challenging, but academically it's air traffic control school. I go, can I do both? And they go, you can try, because we have what are called FAT-Cs, forward air traffic controllers. And so you're an FAA trained air traffic controller, but you get to go out with these super cool dudes, right? Yeah. And I'm thinking I'm going to be one of the super cool dudes. Wrong. I am the air wing pogue. When we get out there, we'll get to that story a little bit. But the poem just arrived. So anyways, so I go, and I'm like, I shine up, and my dad is the most brutal human being in the world. So I go, yeah. So I go, put me on a contract. I'll do air traffic control school, and then I'm going to volunteer for Force Recon, and because back then they'll take you no matter what you did if you can do it, right? So I'm thinking I'm going to be this, and everybody claims to be recon in the Marine Corps, like they're some hardcore.
Just thing. Like fucking everybody in the Navy is a Navy SEAL.
Oh, absolutely, right? The other night I met an Air Force SEAL. A guy told me he was in the Air Force. He was a SEAL. Don't get me started.
No, I mean, dude, I'm all about these stories, dude. I love them.
So I go down there, and my dad's already got this recruiter. It's a Sunday morning. We were drinking on a Saturday night. The recruiter comes in. This young staff sergeant, hey, sir, how you doing? Total fanboy of my dad, right? Oh, we'll sign him up. They've got the paperwork ready to go. And I'm like, you know what? F you, I'll do it, right? So I go to boot camp, right? I get to boot camp. We go through the first week is called your silver bullet, because they shave your head, and you walk around with your trousers unbloused, and they treat you like dirt,
Yeah.
So anyways, we're sitting there, and I get dropped to my platoon, right? And the senior drill instructor is this tall, gangly, big-lipped, weird-looking dude. And he goes, and he's going down, and he gets done, and he goes, Nulty. He goes, are you any relation to? And I go, sir, relation to who, sir? And he goes, John McNulty, Hubert Nulty, Thomas Nulty. I go, sir, Thomas Nulty. I go, sir, the colonel is this recruit's father. And he goes, really? Okay, good.
Special case. Case.
I'm like, and I went in there, I didn't tell anybody anything about my family, nothing, right?
Yeah.
And
you didn't want to draw attention to yourself.
Yeah, no, you don't, right? So, well, my father made sure that never, ever. Anyway, so I get dropped to this guy's platoon every single morning. So this guy is a staff sergeant, used to be the NBC chief at my dad's battalion, right? Knows my dad. They're like coffee buddies. 0500, they're banging the trash cans. Nulty, get on the quarterdeck. Everybody else is still putting on their shoes and stuff. I'm in my skivvies and socks, and he's all, beat your face, 1, sir, 2, sir. And I'm sitting there pushing, and, hey, Colonel, Staff Sergeant Gallagher here. Just letting you know your son's getting strong. And he'd hold out the phone, and I'm out there just every single freaking morning, right? And I'm like, and I'm getting ready to just kill my dad, right?
Yeah, no, he wants to win the bet.
Oh God, yeah. So then, end of first phase of boot camp. So Marine Corps boot camp is 4 phases now because they got the Crucible, but end of first phase, right? So they have a rule. If you get candies or chocolate, you need to get at least one for everybody in the platoon, or you have to eat them all at once and slug a canteen of water and then do push-ups till you throw it up. That's just a rule. Yeah, exactly.
I was a bonehead who did not follow the rule and try to get my own fucking, chocolate fix in boot camp.
Yep. So my dad's like, oh, and my dad's talking to my senior drill instructor like at least 2-3 times a week. So he's like, oh, so he would mail me 68. So we had 72 guys in our platoon. He mails me 68 these chocolates with nuts. I hate nuts in my kid. I love chocolate, love caramel stuff. But he got me he knows this shit that I hate, mint, all of it. 68. I got 3 boxes of these chocolates, right?
But not enough.
Nope, not enough. One for everybody and the drill instructor. He's like, nope. So I'm slugging these chocolates, right? And then slam a canteen of water, push-ups till you puke, and then you got to clean it up, right? Yep. So I've got this slurry. And of course, anybody who's in my squad has to help me because you got to help, the teamwork thing, right? Yeah. So, but at the end of third phase, I am not that popular, right? But I'm a 300 PFT. I'm doing excellent, PFT wise. Yeah. Second phase is field training up at Camp Pendleton. I'm battalion high shooter. I'm dead ringing it. So they're like, man.
So not only you're getting special attention from all the drill instructors, but you're also fucking killing it. So now like everybody's like, I hate you because you're bringing attention to us. You're making us sweat. You're making us get beat. And you're fucking number one. How is this happening? Yeah. So that was it. I still have to this day, I have some of my best friends in the world, Howie Howell, John Howell, and Ray Schwab, the guys that I was in boot camp. I went to boot camp with some phenomenal guys. But anyways, so we go up to field training. I kill it, right? Battalion high shooter. I know I'm getting an award, on graduation, and I'm ready to smoke that expert rifle badge right in my dad's face. Yeah. Right. So we come back down to MCRD and third phase, right? And this is you're doing mess and maintenance and doing some other stuff. You're getting fitted for your uniforms, and it's not that you're still getting beaten. Final drill and final PFT and stuff like that. And one day this box shows up in our squad bay, our platoon deck actually, and it's this big huge box, and it says to the drill instructors of platoon 1034, right? And it's signed Colonel Nulty, USMC, and I'm like, fuck, right? So my drill instructor opens up this box and pulls, what butcher paper is, the big white sheet. So there's rolled up butcher paper, and it's a banner, and the banner says, to the drill instructors of platoon 1034, my son, recruit Commandant Nulty, says that he doesn't get enough exercise and that you are all a bunch of panty-waisted little fuckers, right? And it goes on, and he says, I really wish you would have instilled some discipline in his soul. He's writing home telling us that, this is a piece of cake and he doesn't even break a sweat with you and the whole 9 yards, right? Oh. And then inside, so there's a rule that you beat your face. If girls send you glitter or perfume or anything like that, so they pull out, and my dad has mailed my drill instructors with their names, granny panties, right? Just doused in Chanel No. 5, that nasty women's perfume, right? And senior drill instructor, Staff Sergeant Gallagher, big old, these were for size. These are for women. This was tent. We could have replaced our GP tents with a size. Big, nasty granny panties, right? And I look, and so they put this banner outside of our squad bay, right? So every drill instructor on the base is coming by going, where's Nulty? I got bent
they bent me religiously. I came out of, I mean, I had muscular earlobes when I came out.
I mean, your earlobes had six pack.
That's right. So, I mean, they just beat the snot out of me. And I was like, it was just horrible. The only guy who came out of boot camp in better shape than me was Recruit Green, who just finished being the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps.
What?
And I were boot camp mates, yes. So dark green, black as night, white as teeth in the known universe. Like he'd close his mouth, you couldn't see him at night. He'd smile, and you could see the whole football field. I mean, it was just incredible. So, I mean, and this guy was just
stacked,
just cracking. And it was funny because he's the only person I ever saw who never feared getting bent. Because you get tired of getting smoked, you know?
Yeah.
They take you out in their beat, and he would just, so we would be doing hygiene inspection at night, and the drill instructors would go, he was straight across the squad bay from me, right? And the drill instructors would go by him, and they'd be coming up this way, and he would start breakdancing. And you're supposed to be at attention, right? And he would breakdance.
Man.
Well, the drill instructor's looking in the mirror, in the window over my shoulder, could totally see what he's doing. Yeah. And then he'd turn around and Green would be back at attention, you know? Anyways, he was just a character. So anyways, so that's you can tease the shit out of the former Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps for that. So just, but anyway, so.
But we might have to send him a clip of this, you know, with him dancing and you laughing, you know, like.
So he's like, you know, doing his thing. Anyways, so finally graduation day comes around. So I get wheeled out in my dress blues, right? And so like the battalion honor man and platoon honor man and battalion high shooter, we get to wear our dress blues on graduation and stuff like that. So my dad had to suck it up and watch me walk out there. And then I got to give him my first Marine Corps salute to my dad, wearing my little marksmanship hoodie shooter badge. And he was just, yeah, I tell you, you couldn't have pried his lips closed. He was smiling like you wouldn't believe, you know?
I mean, that was a bet he did not want to lose. And the satisfaction, I bet he was a proudest father that day, watching his son not only endure a hellacious Marine, you know, boot camp. You got to understand, like, not everybody graduates Marine boot camp. There's probably a 20% dropout rate, maybe
20, 25.
Yeah, 20-25% dropout rate. So it's not easy. It's not for the faint of heart going in this. You're going to get punished.
It's a life-changing experience.
But you didn't get punished. You got the fucking hell beat out of you day in, day out until the day you graduated boot camp. And I'm sure the pain didn't really stop there. You know, I mean, probably a little bit. I mean, probably mostly, but now it's more like, all right, he proved me wrong. He went out there and not only did it, but kicked fucking ass doing it. And that's awesome.
Well, so this is how my military career is going all back and forth. So when I just got dropped to boot camp, 6 days after I entered boot camp, Saddam invaded Kuwait. It was the start of Desert Shield, Desert Storm.
Wow.
So they walked into it. So I had enlisted to be, so in order to do my warrant officer flight training that I wanted to do, I had to do my aviation MOS. I was going to be that fat C, and I was going to be that hardcore dude. I get there. Our senior drill instructor walks in 6 days into boot camp, and he goes, "Humana X-ray, you're all infantry." We're like, "No, we're not infantry. We're not." He goes, "Yeah,
you are today."
As of right
just
now,
like that, walks in and goes, "We're changing your job. All you guys are infantry now." And the show wouldn't be made possible without our sponsors, Red, White, and Badass Brew, and Go Man Go Productions.
Baby, I can't make a move like a child of star for love that flows to the sea. Baby, if you run away, baby, if you leave, I'm so in love with you, girl. You make me feel brand new. Come on, give it up to me. Let me take care of you. I know that your mama said I'm gonna make you cry.
All of you guys could be. Well, he said you could be. He said, just so you know, right now, for the good of the Marine Corps, your MOSs are not, your contracts are not guaranteed at this point. And I'm like, no, my mom said I could do this. My dad, you know, and I was never that guy that was going to like, you know, I'm like, you know what, my dad served under Commandant Gray, and they were friends. I actually dated Commandant Gray's daughter. I'll tell you that story. So anyways, tried to get my dad fired out of the Corps, but so anyways, I'm like, so they go, and so they put us into this holding pattern. So, you know, off we go to SOI, School of Infantry. We're up there, we do MCT, and they go, and I have no idea where I'm going to go. They go, you're not deployable. You're slated to go to this recon unit, but you're not a recon. You're nothing, you know? And I go, well, I'm supposed to go to air traffic control school. So they sit me around for 3 months on barracks duty, trying to figure out where they're going to, and then they send me off to air traffic control school. So I'm at air traffic control school. I ace it. I'm the #1 graduate of the most academically challenging thing in the Marine Corps, right? And I come out, and they're like, and right now, and so by that time, Desert Shield is done, and we're kicking off Desert Storm. And they go, hey, you know, you're slated to go over there with Delta Company, but you're not qualified. You're not MOS qualified. And I go, I'm MOS qualified as a Fat C, as an air traffic controller. And so we jiggled it around back and forth, talked to this infantry colonel who's running the program. And he goes, you know, you look solid. You're a good 300 PF tier, expert marksman. You know, you've aced everything in the military so far. He goes, I'm going to go ahead and let you go. And I was like, yeah, right. So I get out there and I show up to this recon unit. And I'm like, I'm your new man. And they're like, shut the fuck up, you air wing pogue piece of dirt. They're like, go scrub the heads. You're not, because you're nothing. I'm not, I'm not qualified. Right. And I'm like, I'm going to be a recon Marine. No, you're not. You're going to be some guy that follows us around and lands airplanes. Right. So I'm like, so they treated me. So again, the hazing starts, right? Yep. You're nothing. You're a piece of dirt. You're not, you know. And I'm like, oh my God, you know. And so finally, they get trucked over there. So Delta Company 4th Recon Battalion is the reserve unit. So they go over there to augment 3 MEF, and they're getting ready to go in. And I go in, and I wind up at Al Asad Air Base, and I'm that guy sitting in the tower, landing planes, 27 right. You know, all I'm doing is sitting there. And every once in a while we'll take some rounds and stuff. But the recon unit is running QRF into al-Baghdadi and stuff. And
QRF is quick reaction force.
Yes, yeah, sorry. So, and I'm begging, you know, and every time I'm like, can I please just get out of the control tower, you know? And they're like, yeah, you can go sit, you can be, you know, I was a unit designated marksman. So I would go sit on a rifle and watch, and Al Asad Air Base. So al-Baghdadi, let me see if I can do it on the screen so it looks right. So al-Baghdadi is slightly to the north and east of Al Asad Air Base. And it's just a pit. It's a bunch of mud huts, and there's some commercial buildings down by the Euphrates River. It's right at the curve in the Euphrates River. And anyways, can't get over there, can't get, and they're like, you want to do some extra work? Bam, I'm washing dishes in the freaking mess hall. I mean, they just slumped me out to everything. So finally I get to run one convoy escort into al-Baghdadi, and then they run QRF. I got a chance to jump on one of the Hummers because they were grabbing people to go. And that was it, you know? And, but I still got to hang out, and I got to go through all the training, and those guys get great training. I got to go to the Bob Bondurant driving school, like for defensive driving. Really? All the cool special forces training those guys get, man. And then the reason they really hated me is because then they would have an admin stand down day. And I go, oh yeah, sorry, I have to go over to El Toro and sit my position as an air traffic controller. So while they're field day in the Hummers and cleaning shit up, I'm over in an air conditioned room, right? So I'm not inspiring any joy, you know.
Right.
My best battle buddy is Charles Norton. He was my swim buddy and my best friend to this day. I've put half of his kids through college. I love him to death. He's the best Marine you don't ever want to share a foxhole with anybody else. He's just the man, you know. And so, anyways, it was just great. The Marine Corps was so much fun.
Yeah. Did you do 4? Did you do 4 and out, or 6 and out, or whatever?
No. So I came back. We were training up at Camp Pendleton. We were doing a low approach insertion, and I was getting ready to unass the bird out the back. And the pilot drifted over. We were supposed to jump out onto grass, be about 3 feet off the deck. Turns out we were about 10 feet off the deck, and we were over concrete. I went out the back with my full load, shattered both of my ankles, both of my heels, just destroyed my feet, and that was it. So I spent 9 months in physical therapy, got done, and then they're like, dude, you're not deployed. You're not coming on with it. I gotta, I'm waiting to be dual cool.
Yeah.
When you have a bubble in your wings, you're called dual cool. I'm like, hey, I got all this training. I got my bubble. I'm scuba certified. I'm jump qualified. I just need to finish this stuff. And recon is not so much that it's hard. It's just a mental challenge.
Uh-huh.
And they say you can make it through. The only thing you have to do is not quit.
Yeah, you got
so
to beat yourself.
Ready to go, and they told me, they said, no, you're not even deployable with us with the injuries. You're out. You're done.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, what the hell am I going to do now? So I go back. I wind up back at El Toro. They're slotting me in, but they want me to go active duty full time, to sit my position. And I'm like, no. I go, I'm going into the reserves. I'm going to, I've already started this security company, and
so you started the security company while you're in the Marines.
When I was a Lance Corporal in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
And what's funny is, as a Lance Corporal, I filed taxes, excuse me, as a Lance Corporal, and I made more money one year than my dad, who was an 06 Colonel.
So was it the high security,
back
that
then
you have now?
We were doing apartment complexes.
Yeah. Low level security type stuff.
I was rent-a-cop. Totally.
Yeah.
I was Paul Blart.
You're a Paul Blart?
Yeah, I had a shopping center, the Flower Hill Mall in Del Mar.
Well, I was about to say, did you have a Segway? But I don't think Segways were a thing back then.
No, not back then.
Yeah.
This was back before there were cell phones. We had pagers.
Oh, fuck.
One of the tenants wanted us, if they were having a shoplifter, they would page us. Dude, and they would have a suite code instead of a phone number.
I worked security as well in Oklahoma at a hospital. And they had a Segway. They had a Segway. Really? Oh, yeah. They had a Segway. And I would ride this fucking Segway around. I got in trouble and almost fired because of this fucking Segway. Like, because cops would come, and I was going to be a cop. So, I'd joke around with the cops and kind of hang out with them when they come. And so I'd ride over there with a Segway and like wheel it like Paul Blart, just fucking just, and screech the tires on this stupid ass Segway. And then I was like, all right, so cops were like, oh, let me ride. I was like, yeah, okay, fuck it. Because the guy who was running the security department was ex Oklahoma City, like a lieutenant or something like that in Oklahoma City Police Department, retired. And he's still trained and still taught at the academy. And anyway, so this fucking cop gets on this damn Segway and he's just like, whoa, and just going like back. I was just like, he might die.
This was the 2-wheel model, not the
the 2-wheel model. Yeah, not the 3-wheel model, the 2-wheel model. And I was like, he might die. Like, I like, but it's gonna be cool. Like, I'm okay with it. Like he got on it on his own accord. Well, they didn't quite 5150 this guy who I guess tried to commit suicide or something, or he was having a mental breakdown, and he fucking jumps out of his room somehow, gets out of his room, jumps over, hits this little girl, and takes off running in the hospital. And I'm over here fucking around with the Segway with the cops. And I get in picture. Actually, I lost my lead role as the shift lead, because of that. And I was just like, man, fuck it. I'm okay with it. Like, yeah. All right. I was like, it was worth it. It was worth it. We had fun. That's why I was just like, when you said, I was like, shit, man, if you had a segue, that'd be awesome. But that was my security days then. But yeah, so you had this company and you freaking started building it and you made more money than your dad as a Lance Corporal.
Yeah.
And he was in 1 year.
Yeah. Just in that 1 year. My dad had some pretty cool investments. My father was really well off. Yeah. Epcot Center in Florida, it used to all be swampland. Yeah. My dad bought it back during the Vietnam War. He bought a whole bunch of that swampland that is now the Epcot Center. So when he sold to Disney, yeah, he
cashed out big time.
Oh yeah, he raked it, you know.
So you got medically retired out of the, or did you got separated?
I did not accept. So they told me I was no longer going to have any kind of deployable role. Yeah. So I was like, well, what am I going to do? I'm like, well, I'll go over to the MPs, you know. So
the most hated unit in the Marines.
the most hated, Blue Falcon. Yeah. And there were some guys in my unit that were true Blue Falcons. All they wanted to do was screw over the. And and I came from these other. I had most of these guys were young that had gone into the Marine Corps to become MPs, to become cops. Right. Well, a lot of police departments don't like MPs. Right. Just as a recruiting venue. It doesn't do you anymore. They like to see infantry guys. They like to see, anyways. So I get in there and I get on the SRT team. I wind up, so I'm on the SWAT, the Marine Corps SWAT team. From there, I segue. So I get assigned to an air wing military police unit, and they do the SRT and HRT and what's called TRAP, Tactical Recovery of Airframes and Pilots, air crew and pilots. Which is hostage rescue missions. Yeah. So I again get to go to all this cool training, and I'm doing all this special operations stuff. I get to go to Army Sniper School, where I kicked it, loved it, and I had a really good time. I had a really good time in the military police. Got to do some cool stuff. Hated garrison. I hated being a base MP guy driving around. Writing. I think I wrote one Marine a ticket in 3 years that I was there. Yeah. And he had, not only did he earn it by being really freaking stupid, but then he was talking about, I'm like, dude, I'm trying to cut you some slack. Yeah. Fuck you, you Blue Falcon. I'm like, okay, did you get that off your chest? He's like, yeah, if you were a real Marine, I'm like, buddy. You had no idea. I go, okay. He goes, just write me the fucking deal. I go, okay. I said, I wasn't so command letter goes off. But other than that, I was, and guys would go, they're like, you're not going to write me up? And I'm like, no, man, I'm just telling you to slow down. I did have, so I'm going to tell you my MP joke. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
So I'm posted up at a stop sign, right? And this guy comes through and he blows through the stop sign, and speed limit's like 25. He goes through the stop sign at 35, right? And so I'm like, I'm gonna talk to him. So I pull out, get behind him, and pull him over, and I go, hey, and of course, so here I am, I'm a corporal, and he's a staff sergeant, right? And I go, hey, staff sergeant, I go, we generally like you to slow down below the speed limit when you run our stop signs, right? Trying to be funny, right? Yeah. And he looks at me and he goes, faster, slower. He goes, slow down, stop. What's the difference? So I grab the fucker by the neck, I pull him out of his car, and I start just wasting him. And I go, do you want me to slow down or do you want me to stop?
I like that. I like that joke, man. That's a good one,
So it wasn't.
I don't know if that'll go viral.
And on a staff non-commissioned officer. You notice me rolling my eyes. So, yeah. So you had the security company, Marine. You get out of the Marines at some point, right? I mean, you get out of the Marines. And then you still have the security company though. Yeah. And then you go in law enforcement? I did. So I had gone through the academy, and so I wound up working with the U.S. Marshals as a detention officer in their transporting subjects that were getting ready to be transported. Yeah. So my buddy, Charles, who I've been my recon buddy, my swim buddy, had gotten on with the U.S. Marshals Con Air. Right. Uh-huh. So he's transporting these knuckleheads all over the country. And so he introduces me to the SAC in San Diego. We meet at the airport because I'm meeting him. We're chatting off to the side. And the guy goes, hey, if you're interested, we need DOs, So I started working part-time down there.
What's a DO?
detention officer.
Okay. All right.
In the jail. So federal prisoners, there's a jail downtown San Diego. So I go down there and I'm working part-time, helping them out with, courthouse security and stuff like that.
And why you're an air marshal?
No, I'm not yet.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha.
So anyway, so he gets me this hookup, and then, so I worked in there for a little bit, and then a buddy of mine's recruiting for the state police. He goes, hey, come over and work with us. You just have to recertify your peace officer standards for training. Yep. And I'm like, oh, okay. So then I go over and I work in the university system. I'm a campus cop at the college. And I do that. And
fucking Van Wilder with a badge.
And then I got recruited to go into because I'd worked in the DO system as a DO. I got recruited by the U.S. Department of Commerce as a background investigator. So all I was doing was fingerprints and background checks. That's all I started off doing. And then they said, so then they opened up a position as a criminal investigator. And my SAC, my supervisor special agent, goes, I would really love to see you take this on. And I'm like, I'm doing, and what was cool is I could come in and work for like 4 hours in the morning doing, and then this was back way before, because this is 20 years before COVID. I could work remote and do backgrounds, making phone calls, driving around town, checking people out and stuff like that. And so it was really cool because I could also work my security company. I could be sitting in a shopping mall parking lot doing stuff on my computer, watching for car thieves, and I'm getting paid from the government, and I'm getting paid as a security guard, and I'm making my phone calls, doing my thing. So I was double dipping pretty hard.
Yeah, you're moonlighting, man.
Yeah. So I got on with the Department of Commerce, and I wound up in charge of their criminal investigations division out here. And I did interstate rail and trucking fraud. I worked a couple of big cases, stuff that was the hobos would get on trains, and as it was coming across the desert, they would break into the container, the Connex boxes that were on the rail cars. They would cut through. They would have a little battery-powered grinder, cut the locks off, or cut the steel bars, whatever. Open up these containers, and they would break in, and they would know like this container number such and such, because they would get intel from the guys at the docks. So when you buy your TV at Best Buy, right, it comes from Japan, China, Taiwan, wherever, goes down south, goes through the Panama Canal, and because of unions, gets unloaded in New Jersey, at Newark or New York Harbor, right? Because unions, because that's where it has to come in. Then that same Connex box gets loaded onto a rail car and trucks across the country and winds up in California. So I was doing cases like where these hobos would find out a Connex box number, a container number, they would hop onto the train, and as they were going across the desert, they would cut these Connex boxes open, and they would take these TVs, big screen TVs, electronics, whatever, and they just throw them off the side of the train. So they go through Yermo, or they go through Barstow, the train coming across the country on Barstow. And so some of the electronics would break from being tossed off the train, some of it wouldn't. Well, what was happening was we had this guy a manager at Best Buy, and what he was doing is he was selling floor models for cash, and anybody that paid cash, he would slip them one of these TVs. So he's selling them at slightly less markup. Now, a hot TV, if you go to buy an in-box TV at the swap meet, you're going to pay about 50%. People are going to go, they're going to know it's sketchy. Also, detectives are all over swap meets looking for that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But this guy had it sorted out. He's like, I'm selling floor models. And he would say, hey, I'll give you an even better deal if you pay me cash. And the guy would say, okay. He goes, I can give you a cash discount. And he would write up a store receipt, but on a separate pad of paper. And then he would go out back, pull one of these stolen TVs from across the country and sell it to the guy. And the guy's got a receipt for valid, and he put the serial number on it.
Yeah, the customer doesn't know any difference.
No, not until a warranty claim comes up. And so that's eventually how we got wise to this guy. Is this guy comes back, he goes, hey, my TV doesn't work. Turned out it had actually gotten a little damaged when it got tossed off of the rail car, and he tried to have it replaced under warranty. They go in, they look the serial number up, shows it's stolen or lost, right? And they're like, yeah, we're not honoring this warranty. The guy makes us stink. They come in, so the local detective gets a hold of us and goes, hey, we think this guy is hinky. We don't know where he's getting his stuff. And that's where our team came in. So we would literally post up out in the desert with binoculars and watch these hobos throwing stuff off. And then a van would come along and pick up the electronics, and then we'd track the van back. And
it's like Fast and the Furious, right? In that scene where not quite
but
that
not
crazy. I mean,
as cool.
it's totally weird.
All we did was sit there and sweat and call it into local law. So
right.
we sat out there in the blazing hot sun, Barstow, right?
Yeah,
sitting on the hillside
garbage.
With his spotting scopes, these telescopes and binoculars. And,
so how did you, you went into, how did you get into local law enforcement eventually?
No, since then, no. I retired out from the U.S. Department of Commerce.
Wait, you retired out?
Yeah, so I used my initial time in the Marine Corps, that combined with my federal service time with Department of Commerce is what qualified me for my retirement. I had to combine the two. Your federal service time, military time will count towards.
The more I talk to you, man, more fascinating this is, because you're.
Really, because my wife would be rolling her eyes listening.
That's why I said you got to leave her at home. So okay. That's fascinating. So you retired out, but you also said you've been with shootouts and stuff as a law enforcement officer, right?
Yes, so I did. So I, back when I worked, I was so again, this is the case. So we were up in Long Beach, and we were trying to serve a warrant on this warehouse where stolen goods were coming in. And we had a guy come out and we had a shootout in an alley up in Long Beach. And then we had when I was working as a state cop, they put me on RAT, regional auto theft. So I wasn't even working at the university campus. I was working on a task force out in town trying to catch auto thieves. And we had a guy, we had set up a bait car.
Yeah.
And so the guy gets in, it's a Honda Accord, and this guy climbs into it, and we have a trigger we can hit, and the doors lock, the windows roll up, and we're supposed to have him trapped, right?
Just like the ones on TV?
Yeah, just like on TV, right? So we're in a van on the side of this AMPM. We've got a bait car parked out front where they'd been losing cars. They'd actually had some carjackings. People would, leave their car, go in to pay for their gas, and these guys would jump in and take off. So we leave this car there. We have a bad key in the ignition. And so this guy jumps into a car with his friend, right? And as soon as they close the door, we got him, and we hit the lock button. And because we had the windows down so they could reach in and unlock the door, right? Because they see the key. And so they jump in, the windows start going up, and this guy's trying to open the door, and he freaks out. So the driver is trying to drive. Yeah. His friend pulls out this revolver, sticks it right in front of his face, and shoots at us out the window. Well, you know how a revolver isn't a sealed chamber like a semi-automatic.
Yeah, he just blinded his fucking friend.
The forcing cone, right, is his friend's got this line where the flames just like right down it. It was a perfect, right down, he's got this red hash mark right in the middle of his face, right? But the round goes off, and the window shatters. And so they both unmasked the vehicle. And as soon as we heard the round go, everybody hits the deck. And, we're scrambling around and and of course we're on regional level. So back then vests weren't required,
right?
So we're all running back to our car, throwing on our So by then this guy's run down into a canyon, and he's down in the canyon and pointing his gun at. I had stopped because I felt kind of funny, and all of a sudden I see the hand with the revolver come out of a bush and is pointing at a couple of officers that were down the way. So So I jump on the guy, tackle him, and I knock the gun out of his hand. Well, the two cops run over, and they're San Diego police officers, and they're ready to just drill this guy because they see the revolver. Yeah. And I'm like, no, don't shoot him. And afterwards, the suspect looks at me and goes, dude, you were willing to take a bullet for me. And he starts crying. I've never had anybody do that. I'm like, motherfucker, I was about ready to kill you myself. Don't think that you and I are buddies now. So I throughout my so we had some pretty cool I had a couple of like I said, use of force it is. I rolled them all up. I stuck them in the book.
Yeah.
I kind of fictionalized them a little bit to make it fit the plot. And
sure. So that book he's pointing to is a locker. So if you want to hear about the stories, man, that you got to grab that book. You know, he is an entertaining writer for sure. So you get through this. So this is your, first shootout kind of, and you get this guy. And all the while you still have the security company, right?
Yes.
And so you're in law enforcement, and then you have the security company. How dramatically has the police department and police departments changed since you served on it?
Let me get on my soapbox right now.
Yeah, fucking get on it, man. Let's lather up.
So so back in the day, especially in rough parts of town, national city cops, old school national city cops are hard as freaking nails, right? They're dealing with MS-13 gang members. It's a rough part of town. Chula Vista had a good part of that. And it used to be back in the day, some guy would talk trash and you could put him up against the wall by his neck and give him a, come to Jesus talk. It's like, hey, you want to play by the rules of the jungle? I'm going to freaking go Tarzan on you. Don't come in here talking like you're some badass or something, because I'll thump your skull, And nowadays, if you do something like that, man,
you're going to jail.
Oh, you're going to jail. Yeah, you can't even make a threat,
Yeah.
And it's to the point now, these, our poor law enforcement right now, their hands are so tied, and we have these liberal DAs, and everything's about optics,
Uh-huh.
And I can show you hours of video of people that the criminals are no longer afraid of the law. They're not going to jail.
Why? Because they're not going to jail. I mean, if the charges will probably get dropped.
We had a guy in Escondido, a good friend of mine on the Escondido Police Department, came over and was telling me. So this guy broke into a sewing machine repair shop. The alarm goes off. The cops get him. They call in and they say, hey, we got this 459 suspect. We're going to take him to jail. The jail calls back and says, no, we're not accepting for 459. Write him a cite and release him, right? So they write him a citation for the burglary, right? No harm, no criminal mischief, intent can be proved. So it's a misdemeanor burglary, right? They leave. The guy walks 4 doors down, breaks into another shop. Again, alarm goes off. He's destroying the place, right? Same officers come back. Oh, we got him now, right? Hook him up. He's in bracelets. Yeah, we've got him again on another 459, separate case number, separate event number.
Same day, same fucking night.
Not even an hour apart, right? They call down. They go, so the DA liaison down at the jail goes, no, we're not taking him. And so they write him another citation. So, and they kick him loose, right? But now the cops stay in the area.
Yeah, because he's going to do it again.
Right? So he walks down the street, goes to BMW of Escondido, right? And the cops get another call, so they pull off of him. He breaks into BMW of Escondido, and the guy's drunk. The guy is hammered drunk, right? Breaks into their service area, breaks the key box open, and takes the key to their detailing truck. The truck that they use to detail the car, right?
all the fucking keys in the box, and he picks not even a BMW. He just picks the fucking detailing truck.
Right? So he takes this truck, crashes out through the gate, drives down, and turns onto one of my commercial properties, right? Drunk as a skunk. Drives up over the lawn, hits a traffic bollard, high centers the truck on this yellow post, a bollard, right? And starts freaking out, right? Because he's bent the door, so he can't get out of the door. So they've got some tools in there. So he takes a pair of bolt cutters and he just starts wrecking this car. He's prying the dash off. He cuts the steering wheel into chunks and just destroys the car in this fit of rage. And this is like 2 o'clock in the morning. So the cops show up at the BMW dealership, but they have no idea.
The same guy? The same cops?
Huh?
Same cops as before?
Yeah. Oh, a bunch of them. Anyways, but as he drives away from the dealership, he crashes. He like literally plays pinball going down the street. He runs into like 6 other cars before he crashes on our property. So then he gets out of the truck, right? Throws a match in it to light it on fire. It catches on fire partially. and he starts walking away, and he's so drunk, he trips over a bulge in the sidewalk, face plants, and knocks himself out, right? So I get a phone call, right, from the donut shop that's opening up at 4:30. They go, hey, we've got a truck up on a bollard and a dead guy in the parking lot. And I go, what? I go, I'll be right there. So we get there, and I call Escondido PD, and Ron comes out, and he's all, oh, he goes, we've been chasing this guy all night. And he tells me the story about how this guy, they wouldn't take, the jail wouldn't take this guy, and they had to cite him, and the guy had the citations in his pocket, So that's what our law enforcement is putting up with. They've literally been hamstrung. Their ability to do any kind of enforcement, nobody respects them. I was taught when I was a kid, if a cop pulled you over, yes, sir, no, sir, I'm sorry, sir, and you treated him with respect,
Hey,
and
guys,
if the cop
how do you get out of a fucking ticket? Just be a fucking gentleman or lady and say, yes, sir, yep. Admit your wrongdoing. Me wrongdoing. Yeah. Only fucking officer that gave me a ticket. Actually, there were two of them. One in Virginia, I lied to him, rightly so, deserved. I was racing, got a fucking ticket. Boom. It was my fault. I shouldn't have been racing. Second one, Highway Patrol. Now, Highway Patrol is a little bit different.
Yeah,
they'll give their own mother a ticket.
Yeah, they will.
So, my boobs didn't work that one either.
When I was a cop, the very first, whenever you pulled over a Highway Patrol officer, the first thing they did was they had the badge out, and they were expecting that professional courtesy. Yeah. The minute a Highway Patrol officer pulls you over, oh, you're a cop, you should know better. Yeah. I ought to write you up, and they'll give you an ad. And I'm like, dude, they give you the earful. And I have some great friends that are Highway Patrolmen. As a matter of fact, a couple of the sergeants up in the LAPD division are just great guys, and they deal with. Those are the guys that chase, gang members. Yeah. You're right. But it's not only the street tactics have changed. Absolutely. We're talking about now the higher upper echelon of these cops are in the middle, because now they have the gang members, the street problem. Now they have department head problem who are like, what the fuck did you do? You wrote with the wrong pen. You're fired. You're out. You're going to jail. Yeah. Now they don't have their back. Like back in the day. Disparaging remark. Yeah. So I'm going to give you I'm not going to name the U.S. District, the Attorney General's name. She was a real pill. So when I was working with the U.S. Department of Commerce, because I had a tactical background, I became the federal government's designated expert on use of force policy. I helped write the Columbine High School shooting brief, and I wrote the Trayvon Martin brief with George Zimmerman. Remember?
Yeah, in Florida? Yeah, no shit.
Okay, so what happened was, I received the case, I took a look at the notes, did my interviews, and I wrote a position paper. So the position I write an opinion. So this paper is strictly my opinion. Right. Okay. I can't be held liable for it. I can't. Yep. They can say, well, that's your opinion, and the only weight that it bears is the fact that I'm an expert in this subject matter. Right. So my boss calls me up and goes, hey, Sac Nulty, guess what? You got to do some stuff. And this thing was already blown up. It was all over the news and everything else. Right? They go, we need you to write an unbiased use of force opinion on George Zimmerman and what happened. And I go, okay, whatever. So the case lands on my desk, and by this time it's file boxes, so the original contact and notes report, the binder was two of those big thick ones that they taped together. So I get it, I start looking at it, and I start, going through stuff, and I write this position paper. My statement of my opinion is that George Zimmerman was not in wrong when he shot Trayvon Martin. The reasons were, and I never mentioned color, race, anything. I never mentioned a thing. All I said was, suspect Martin had repeatedly had contacts on the property before. They'd had violence issues with him. He'd assaulted staff before. Subject has had a distressed relationship with his school. He's been suspended for fighting, and I list all of these factors, right, that apply to the loss of life. I then look at Zimmerman. He was on duty, in uniform, acting within the course and scope of his duties. He had prior knowledge of this individual, right, and his actions. He had been contacted before about trespassing. Martin had Facebook. It all got deleted later, but he had Facebook posts showing that he had on him at the time precursor chemicals to make drugs. They called it fuel, a couple of different things. But he would brag on Facebook that he was, making drugs and stuff, right? So through my opinion, I stated these series of facts. This is what Martin did. This is what Zimmerman did at this time, and not once in my entire report did I mention color, race, racial interaction. Zimmerman was Mexican, but because his name was Zimmerman, everybody thought he was white. He's a Mexican guy,
No, right.
So he's a minority, right? And
but media didn't spin it that way.
Yeah. Well, a German got into the woodpile back in the day, and that's how he wound up with the name Zimmerman.
Yeah.
So I write this position paper, and the next thing I know, I get a phone call that I have to report in to professional standards. And I go, okay, and I show up and they go, we're investigating you for racism. And I go,
what?
Racism? And they go, systemic racism. And I go, systemic? I go, where have I ever been racist? I mean, Craig, my dad came home from Vietnam. One of his best friends, my dad's name is Tom. His best friend, his name was Tom. Guy, again, black skin, lived in my house. I never even consider, I'd never been in, I'd never gone in the South where you referred to them by the N word or anything.
Oh, yeah. I'll tell you a story after you get done.
So I know, so I'm like, when have I ever been racist? And they go, do you want to redact your report? And I'm all, what report? What is this all about? And it turns out that this attorney general is planning on filing charges against me for creating a racist document against blacks. And I'm like, show me the document. And he hands me my position report on the Trayvon Martin. And they go, and this AG, she claimed that my report, which was based solely on the facts presented. I mean, I had cite and source for everything that I did, and I had access to, we subpoenaed Facebook. I had access to all the stuff, right, that portrayed this young guy as a criminal, and I portrayed this guy, and Zimmerman was a wannabe cop, kind of.
Yeah.
I can't testify. I can't testify to his state of mind or what his deal was.
Sure.
But in this instance, I don't care what a dirtbag he was or wasn't or whatever. In this instant, he didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
So I had to state that. I stated that in my report. That's what I get paid to do. But because I never used color, I never said this black boy or this whatever. But because the suspect,
race isn't part of the facts.
It wasn't.
That's not.
It wasn't at all. The picture that I had pictures of him included in my report that, and it obviously shows that he's a black male. But that at no time did I say, well, this black guy did this or whatever. I never ever mentioned it. And so so I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, put me up for review. I go, and they're like, well, we want to know why you, and I'm like, who says this is racist? And they said, well, this certain attorney general did. And I go, she's not even part of this case. She's 5 states north. Why are we, she's north. I should take that out. Because people will start figuring out who she is. But anyways, it was just, and then she writes in her email to start the investigation of me. She goes, well, it's apparent that according to Agent Nulty, the only good N-word is a dead N-word, right? And she starts using all these, he's against the Negroes and he's against this and I'm like, and she's using all this racial verbiage and just hateful stuff, the very epitome of hate speech that the Democrats scream, the liberals scream about.
Sure.
She's using it in these emails. And finally my boss, looks at her stuff, looks at my stuff, and he goes, it's not happening. So I wrote a small blurb supporting my document. I said, I stand behind it. It's getting submitted. I'm submitting it as an opinion paper. I've supported it with the facts. if you guys have a problem with me, let me know, and I'll go get, some big name lawyer that would love to tear this apart.
Yeah.
And so it got washed away. But so that's what cops are dealing with now. Their hands are tied. Everything's about optics, and I'm down in sports ring. I got a guy pulling a samurai sword on me, and they're like, don't
a samurai
shoot.
sword? The guy's just walking around with a samurai sword?
And this was not.
No, it's all right. You can send the pictures to us. Send the pictures to us later. We'll use them.
I will. Okay, but we laid it on the hood of the car, right? And it went from the windshield to the front of the Ford. It was the big one.
Holy fuck.
And the guy's walking around Midway District in San Diego, threatening to chop people up, and
there's nothing. He's just threatening, and he still probably didn't go to jail.
No, he had robbed somebody with the samurai sword in La Mesa.
Oh, all right.
He actually wound up going to jail, and they were like, "Are you gonna? Please tell me you're gonna file." I go, "Hell yeah, I'm gonna file. I'm pressing charges, And the kid pled out. He took the guilty. We have it all on video, but yeah. So just law enforcement is in a very bad spot. And it used to be like when we would show up on a call, there was the bad guy, the criminal, the victim, and we were the good guys, right?
Right.
And at least the victim liked us. The criminals very rarely like us. Right?
Sure.
Now when we show up, it's just as likely that both the victim and the criminal hate us. I mean, I thank God I don't do it anymore. But I mean, cops will show up and they go, half of the time these people, and these are the screaming liberals, they're victims of these hardcore criminals.
Yeah.
And they'll come up and the cops will start hooking them up, and they'll go, "Oh no, you don't need to do that. You just need to tell him." And we're like, "Lady, he just broke into your car and stealing groceries."
Tell him.
Yeah, and it's surreal. So there's a Chinese curse. It says, "May you live in interesting times," and it's one of the worst curses you can tell somebody. And right now, we are living in interesting times.
If you have a heroic story and you'd like to share it, get in contact with us. Our information's in the bio. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe, like, and share. And then I'll see you on the next episode, badasses.